We now have Professor Alka Hingorani, who is from the IDC School of Design. She will be talking about her project Let's, which is Learn English Through Stories.
It's safer this way. That's probably why you get it better. Yeah. Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. I'm going to talk about this project that's called Learn English Through Stories. We are in the process of dropping the E to the lowercase, and I'll talk about that in a moment. The film was skipping a bit. This charts the early part of English language learning pedagogies and making them available with increased connectivity, with increased access to the internet. There were in villages like Khun and Khanag at 10,000 feet above sea level, where so far began to feel that it might be possible, because 2/3 of the material on the net is still available, better than they had needed to do before. Largely to collate existing pedagogy in their contexts. And so this early collected what was out there, saw animated language that has been initiated by we used books that Pratham levels of children for reading English had their own voices reading those stories. We gathered very quickly. One was that language pedagogies almost created in socioeconomic culture and concerns. Then into a language that's not ours. The language isn't heard. What is it when we talk areas which have access to the kinds of we have this sense of alienation. Project-based learning that's entered the curriculum. Rural areas who are doubly alienated from mode that we used, and we began to and soon realized that these children were surprisingly good at both storytelling And we wondered whether we could not, when we are trying to teach or learn English, and because almost everything can be learned through trying to spread out children who are learning to libraries across and a large institution, August, about it. Thank you. We've been holding art workshops in these schools and trying to create.
Hello.
This is a library of books that we have right now. And in the initial phase, as with everything, it's a little bit slow. It takes time to build up speed. And we've already come to a place now where every 4 or 5 day workshop with a bunch of children is able to generate 3 to 4 books. Right? The thing that happened. This is not working? Okay. Let's take this off. Yeah. So this is the context in which we were working. And we equipped these children with tablets, with phones, with ways of accessing the material that's already there. But we found that this was the most productive means, in fact, of getting them engaged, getting them to participate and to take ownership of the material that they used then for learning. And those are the things that are largely lacking, I think. There are 3 things we are trying to address with this. One is the really serious lack of teachers in rural schools, and we're trying to figure out whether there are means and modes of making children self-learners with the capacity to create the content that they can then use, collaboratively create the content that they can then use for learning. The other 2 have to do with context sensitivity. The first is relevance. What is being taught and how does it, or does it speak to the ground? The other thing about context sensitivity is both participation and ownership. Who is doing the teaching? Who owns the material that is being taught? And this mode of working, slow as it has been at the beginning, seems to take care of all of these aspects so that when you work with these children and you go back to them with books where their work has been polished to this quality, as happens to all the books that you and I write, for instance, right? We have teams of designers who work on the books that we create. And what we are saying is, can we create a design team that works on their books? They jump out of their skins when they see their names on the credit pages of the books. That's the other thing that we are trying to do over here, where you say that there is nothing about single person authorship or ownership here. All creative enterprise is really collaborative. And can we bring that idea back into the world? Can we leave the 20th century behind with its single artist or author as genius idea? The next thing that we wanted to do was, how do we have these children take these books home with them? The copies that we are creating go back into their libraries, but most of these children don't own books. So the first copies that they create, they were taught to bind those copies in the workshops and carry them home as their own. We scanned the images and brought them over to us, and then worked on translating the stories into English, polishing up the pages a little bit, sort of scrubbing was a word somebody recently used, and cleaning up the pages, and then creating these books. Can we show them one of the books? Let's open that. It's fine. Yeah. Okay. So these are the kinds of books that we're putting together with children, where the illustrations and the stories are entirely theirs. They're translated by us. The page design, the book layout, initially done by our team, is also slowly now being transferred over to the children. The thing that we are now doing with Agastya International Foundation is teacher training, where their art and media arts teachers are getting into the program of taking over part of this process, so that the initial part of collecting stories and creating these books becomes something that the schools do. Agastya is also involved in teacher training programs, so the aim is to spread this idea to other schools. Right now in the tri-state area, that is fed by the Kupam campus, but hopefully in the next year or two also to other campuses. We want children to become involved, and Prashant Gavande I would like to mention also over here from the JRD Tata School. One of the early thoughts that we had, which we have not yet worked on but will soon, is whether we can create geography primers, whether we can talk about integrated learning, which Agastya also works on, in terms of taking conceptual thinking or thinking that is larger and about complex world problems like climate change, and have children do enough research so that they can create primers that can be used as texts then by others. We've been really fortunate in sort of evincing and then getting people to collaborate with us. Professor Preeti Rao is sitting over here also from the EE department, who works with speech recognition, signal processing. She's been with us from quite early on when they helped us slap on a little software for voice recording so that the early stories that these children heard, they could then repeat in their own voices, record it, and that recording could be tested by us. They're working on automatic feedback, which we hope also to use in our project sooner or later. Professor Aarti Kalro, if she's here, from SOM, IIT Bombay, helped us with our experiment design and with some statistical analysis as well. And so all of this team effort is going towards seeing two or three things that we can do when we talk about changing what education is about in our country. One is that we'd like to stop it from being a unidirectional broadcast kind of medium, what's happening right here, and to see if it can become a conversation. Two is to see that children can be transformed by themselves and through our collaborative work from being mere consumers of content to co-creators of content. And the third thing, which I did not mention in the last symposium that we were here because it's come to me only later, is as I think more and more about the ways in which we address the problems of the materially poor, I realize that the first axis on which most of us think, and I hear this a lot all around me, is affordability. We immediately talk about what is the poor person able to afford in terms of any kind of material good that we provide them, or service, or system, right? And I have argued about this in the Tata Center for a long time. I'll post it, present it to you over here as well. I really think we need to start it from the other direction. We need to find the best solutions possible first. We belong to a space at the IIT Bombay and at MIT and at other institutions where we are not materially poor as far as resources or access to resources is concerned. And if our starting point becomes finding the best possible solution, then more minds can be applied to what are the modes of creating affordability. And the modes of creating affordability don't always have to be, does the person have money in his or her pocket to buy something? There can be many other methods of making this happen. If you look at the quality of the books that we produce, for instance, we've been talking about creating a business plan, and there are several people who ask us where can they buy these books from. And these are not people who are from the rural areas where these books were created. These are people with enough money in their pockets to be able to pay a premium for these books and be able to fund, for instance, the free books that we might give to libraries. There are government agencies that can do that. CSR funding is available right now. There are enough other bodies, NGOs, that can generate their own funding who might become involved in this process, right? So I'd like very much for us to turn this whole argument upside down about affordability and look at that as the last axis after a solution has been found. That's the process that we are trying to follow in this. And if there are any ideas or suggestions, any people over here who'd like to work with us on this, please let me know. Thank you very much for your time. Yeah. Oh, I did not mention the Tactopus thing, did I? Do you have the mobile application ready to show? Okay. Sorry, there's one more thing that we need to talk about. Between the animated films that we are making of these books and the books themselves, there is a gap in that we have to acknowledge that English is not an easy language to learn where it's not heard. We have a young team of two designers from IDC who started their own company called Tactopus, who've worked out a mobile application for us where the mandate was that you could not use the phone alone in order to learn the language. It's all right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the clue sound for turning a page.
Excellent.
The boy would call to the car, "Let's go home, car." The boy had now begun pleading.
That's good. Thank you.
Come,
Thank you
let
very
us
much.
leave home."
So it's obviously incredibly responsive, but the mandate to the team was that you could not get rid of the book. That the book was what the children had made, and they needed to continue having a relationship with that analog thing. The other thing about it is also, we've already seen this. David Sachs has written a book called The Revenge of Analog. We've already seen this in our own world. We are sensorial beings. As we put more and more stuff into the virtual world, we are beginning to see how people are returning to that which is sensorial, which can be touched, felt, seen, held in their hands, pages get turned, and that's what we're trying to maintain with this application, where the child's concern will still be with the book once the application is switched on, and the application does the reading. We're trying to layer it with more things now, where you can pause at places, go back and reread sentences, perhaps point to words and have their pronunciation repeated, etymology, synonyms and homonyms, all those things are in the works at the moment. But this application, with the reading of the books, of about 12 books at the moment, will be out in 41 village libraries that Kupam runs by the end of January. That is the intent. And so that's one of the other axes on which we're working. Thank you.